Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Australian Catholic Superannuation and Retirement Fund's retirement planning session on this, the 2nd of May 2022. I presume that we've got people from all over the country. My name is Ray Smith. I'm the Regional Manager in WA. I'm joined by Jolene Stockwell, who's a financial planner based also in WA. And the moderator is Mr. Justin Colley, based in our Sydney office. First slide, please, Jolene.
Yep, here we go.
First of all, I'd like to Acknowledgement of Country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I work and live and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and community. I pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. I should mention that if anyone wants to ask any questions, they should use the chat facility, and we will deal with those either as we go or at the end of the session. And you can just log those on with us. Because we're a financial product, of course, we have to give a disclaimer. Any of the advice contained in this presentation is of a general nature and has not taken into account your personal objectives, financial situation or needs. Prior to acting on any of the information from this presentation, you need to take into account your own financial circumstances, consider the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any product that you are considering, and seek independent financial advice if you are unsure of what to take. Past performance is not a guaranteed reliable indicator of future performance. One of the things that we're going to talk about this evening is retirement goals. Different people have different desires. Some people want to travel, and even that can take different forms. Some people want to spend a lot of family time. I can tell you my wife and I in the past have done several cruises, and at some stage we'll probably want to get back into it. From an entertainment point of view, or from a travelling in a domestic level, you can either go anything from camping to glamping. You might just be content doing your gardening, or you might want to go to theatres and shows and things like that. But depending what you want to do will totally depend on whether or not you've got sufficient money saved to be able to do that. And so part of this presentation is trying to provide you with information that will put you in a position where you're best served to be able to do all the things that you want to do. So on that note, it's very important that you know how much money you've got in your super. You should be making sure that your employer is making their contributions on time and they're up to date. I read an article in today's paper that they're going to chase up on a lot of employers in the building and construction industry because they're well behind. You want to work out what you might want to do and whether you want to add more to your balance. And we're going to talk later on in the presentation about how you can do that and what limits there are as to how much you can put in. You want to make sure you know how much super you are going to need when you get to retirement. And from that point of view, you can get assistance from our financial planning team. And it's all about meeting your desired goals. Thank you, Jolene. First of all, it's worthwhile considering how much money you might need. And in Australia, there's one of the pillars toward retirement is the old age pension. If you're a single person and you're eligible for a full old age pension, that amounts to $25,677 per annum. And a couple doesn't get twice that because they believe that many of the expenses are shared. So a couple combined get $38,700. The Australian Superannuation Funds Association have decided that for a modest income, a single person needs around about $29,139 per annum, and a couple need $41,929 combined. So if you're quite content with a modest retirement, then it's not inconceivable that you may be able to do that on just the old age pension, assuming, of course, that you qualify for the full entitlement. But many of us have a desire to live a little bit better than a modest retirement, so we want to be a little bit more comfortable. So again, ASFA has determined that on average, a single person who wants to live a comfortable retirement needs around about $46,000, and that a couple needs somewhere closer to 65. So as you can see, there's a little bit of difference between what the old age pension will provide and what you need to live a comfortable lifestyle. So it's pretty important to determine or to consider putting a little bit extra into your super and making sure that you've got sufficient to live the lifestyle to which you want to become accustomed. This slide actually gives you some indication of what the differences between a modest and a comfortable retirement are. And it's simple things like some people might be happy with takeaway food from McDonald's or from Hungry Jack's, but some people want to go out more regularly to restaurants and have fine dining. So those sorts of differences are what determines whether or not you have a comfortable lifestyle or a modest one. My suggestion would be if you fund toward a comfortable lifestyle and you're happy with a modest one, well, then your money's going to last much longer. And that slide also gives you a bit of a comparison with how that relates to the old age pension, which is arguably another step lower. Those figures have been provided by ASFA as well, which is the same association. We at Australian Catholic Super take a very holistic view to your financial situation, because not everyone is adamant that all of their savings need to be in superannuation. There are times when you need immediate access to money, so it's handy to have some accessible money, and that's in the form of cash in your bank accounts. These days in Australia, a lot of people actually own shares themselves or have purchased shares. Now, some of that might have started back in the 70s and 80s when AMP demutualised, and that gave the average Australian access to owning shares, and I think it's become more popular. Property has always been a very popular investment vehicle here in Australia, and a lot of people have got investment properties and things like that. Obviously, the cost and the value of the family home is an important consideration, particularly from a pension point of view, because your family home is not considered an asset, but we'll talk about that later. And obviously, our area of expertise, superannuation, and some of the advantages from a tax point of view, and some of the reasons that super is a very effective savings vehicle for people toward their retirement years. Thank you, Jolene. Another important consideration is the tax benefit of using superannuation. Contributions into super by your employer or contributions that you make yourself are taxed at 15% on the way in, and any investment earnings that are generated in the superannuation phase are taxed at 15% or up to 15%. That also applies in transition to retirement. If you're accessing your super via a pension, but you're still working, you still pay the 15% tax on the investment earnings. But as soon as you move to an account-based pension, and that's determined by either turning 65 years of age, or if you've had a cessation of employment after age 60, then money that's in an account-based pension at that stage is not taxed on the investment earnings. So there's some benefit to have. So, because if you've got money in the bank and you're generating any interest, and that's obviously not particularly applicable at the moment, but in times when you are, that income needs to be declared in your tax return, so you pay tax on it at the marginal tax rate. So in the allocated pension, the fact that you don't pay any tax on the earnings is very beneficial. Funding toward your retirement, there's a couple of considerations. These are the ages that people can presently get access to their superannuation. And for people who are currently aged 58 or 59, what they access from their superannuation or a pension phase is taxable. Once they turn 60 and up to age 65, it's not taxed, but they still need to meet a condition of release to be able to get access to it. And after age 65, the proceeds are still not taxed, but whether you're working or not, you've got unlimited access to your money because you've met a condition of release as a consequence of turning 65. One of the ways that you can get a little bit of money into superannuation is to salary sacrifice. And the reason why people might want to consider that is that it's quite often applies a preferential tax treatment to your contributions into super. We have a tiered tax structure in this country, and the more money you earn, the more tax you pay. And as you can see with the various tax brackets, for example, from $45,000 to $120,000, your marginal tax rate is 32.5%. If you earn between $120,000 and $180,000, and this is taxable income, not just earnings, so it might apply to other income that you generate, it's 37%. And if your taxable gross income is in excess of $180,000, first, congratulations, but secondly, your marginal tax rate is a 45% figure. It's approaching half of what you earn beyond $180,000 goes in tax. Superannuation guarantee has also been elevating of late. Many of you would have realised on the 1st of July last year that the percentage went from 9.5% to 10%. On the 1st of July this year, it's going to go to 10.5%. The 1st of July next year, it's going to go to 11, and so on and so forth until it meets its cap of 12% on the 1st of July 2025. I mentioned that it might be worthwhile considering making salary sacrifice contributions, so we've done up a bit of an example here. This is a person on a salary of $100,000, so their fortnightly pay is $3,846. If they don't make any additional contributions to super, the taxable portion of their income is the $3,846, and their take-home pay after the deduction of PAYE tax is $2,884. If that same person elected to contribute 5% of their earnings into superannuation as a pre-tax salary sacrifice contribution, thereby an amount of $192, it reduces their taxable income by that same figure. So the taxable portion is now only $3,653. Their take-home pay has similarly reduced, but as a consequence of the tax difference, it's only down to $2,757, which is only a reduction of what they would have taken home of $127. But at the same time, they're contributing $192 into their superannuation. That gets taxed at 15%, of course, as a salary sacrifice contribution, provided it hasn't exceeded the cap. But over a period of some 10 years, that is a sizable contribution to their super. And based on this particular example, it's potentially a saving of $17,160 over a 10-year period. What I haven't factored in, of course, is that if your income is over $250,000, that it's slightly different and it's somewhat compromised. There's two different ways you can make contributions into super. The most obvious is the concessional contribution, and that includes your employer contribution, such as superannuation guarantee. Your employer may make additional contributions to your super. You may choose to make salary sacrifice contributions as well. And for those people, an example of which is a self-employed person, they might make personal deductible contributions, and they're all considered to be concessional contributions. And the cap for that as of this financial year is $27,500. And anything up to the 27,500 that is a concessional contribution going into the super is taxed at 15% on entry. On top of that, you can make additional contributions called non-concessional contributions, and the limits for those as of the 1st of July 2021, for a person under 67 years of age, they were able to contribute $110,000 per annum, and you could roll forward 2 additional years worth of contributions. So in one lump sum contribution, you could pay in $330,000, but then that constitutes the payments for 3 consecutive years. Between 67 and 74, you couldn't bring the roll forward option into play. You were limited to $110,000, and currently there is a requirement that you have met the work test, and the work test is to have done 40 hours of gainful employment within any 30-day period, and you had to meet that each and every financial year to be able to make the contribution, but you only had to meet it once in that financial year. So if you met the work test in July, that then permitted you to make the contribution at any stage during that year. Once the new financial year started, however, you needed to meet the work test again in order to be able to make another similar contribution. And after 75 years of age, there is no further opportunity to contribute into superannuation. We're going to talk in a little while about some changes that have been made, but they're the limits that currently exist, and they're the conditions that people have to meet to be able to make contributions. There are other ways to contribute to superannuation. So if you are currently over 65 years of age and you sell the family home which you've owned for more than 10 years, you have the capacity to make a downsizer contribution of up to $300,000 each. You can make contributions on behalf of your spouse, and your spouse can make contributions on behalf of you. And in some circumstances, there may be an eligibility for a rebate. And one of the other ways to contribute to your Australian Catholic superannuation is to consider consolidating other superannuation funds. Many people in Australia have multiple funds as a consequence of having multiple employments over their work life. And for some reason, some people just don't get to the point of consolidating all of their superannuation funds. The reality is, having multiple funds means that you're paying multiple fees, and it's quite possible that you're also paying multiple insurance costs as well. When can you access your superannuation? Because we've talked a lot about putting money in, but obviously the purpose of that is so that at some stage you can get access to it. So at the moment, if you were born if you were born between the 1st of July 1962 and the 30th of June 1963, your preservation age is 58. And in order to be able to access your superannuation, you have to have reached your preservation age and met a condition of release. For 58 and 59-year-olds, that condition of release is to have genuinely retired with no intention of working again in the future. If you were born after the 30th of June 1964, your preservation age is 60, and anyone born after that, their preservation age continues to be 60 as well. And in order to be able to access your superannuation, you have to have ceased an employment arrangement after having had your 60th birthday. We haven't put age 65 or above on the slide because irrespective of your circumstances, you've got full access to your superannuation after your 65th birthday. So how can you access your super? Historically, and I'm going back many, many years, when you got to retirement age, you basically withdrew your money out of your super, you put it in the bank or did whatever you needed to do with it. And so it was being accessed as a lump sum, and that doesn't mean that you can't do it these days. But the reality is more and more people are getting considerable amounts of money in their super by the time they reach retirement. In many cases, it's likely to be their second biggest investment after the family home, and in some cases it might even be more than the value of the family home. So more and more people are deciding to move it into an income stream and pay themselves a pension from their self-created superannuation fund. It's worthwhile mentioning that you can only create an allocated pension with money in super. So quite often, a lot of people, as they're approaching retirement and are about to set up an allocated pension, use that opportunity to put some extra money into their super in the form of a lump sum contribution just before they retire. At this point, I think I will pass over to Jolene and she'll take over from me.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So the first pension that we're going to have a look at is the transition to retirement. So this pension is where you've hit your preservation age. So if you're currently 58 or moving to 59, and for the rest of us from age 60, but you're still working. Okay, so the key thing here is you're under 65 and you're still working, you're more than likely to have a transition to retirement pension. There are some limitations. It starts to allow you to access your super, but there's rules around how much and how you can do that. So if you start a transition to retirement pension and you are under age 60, you will still pay some tax on the income that you draw down. But if you are over 60, then that income now becomes tax-free when you withdraw it. The investment earnings, though, are exactly the same as super. So whatever earnings that your account being still invested is making for you is taxed up to a maximum of 15. Now, the accounts that you have, one of the rules is that you must take a minimum payment, and that minimum payment is legislated, determined by your age. So if you're under 65, it's 4%. Now, for the last 2 years, and the government has just announced for next financial year, they're going to continue it as well, is that that minimum payment that everyone must make is now reduced by 50%. So if somebody wanted an account, either a transition or a full pension, the minimum amount they only need to take is 2% if you're under 65 or 2.5% if you're 65 or over. Now, above that, transition to retirement allows you to take a maximum of 10%. Okay, and that payment is per financial year, and it's 10% of your starting balance if you started midway through the year, or of your balance that you had in that account on 1 July. So remember, key thing is after age 60, it's a lot more friendly because you're not paying tax on the withdrawals. But if you are 58 or 59 and you have a transition to retirement, you do get a little bit of a rebate, but you're still going to pay a little bit of tax on that as well. The allocated pension, this is when you've hit a condition of release. So you've either turned 65, or if you're younger than 65, it means you've hit a retirement point. So you may have changed employers, or you've retired and you're not working 10 or more hours in any week. The rules change here, they open up a bit more. So the first one is the tax on the investment earnings goes from a maximum of 15 down to 0. The minimum payment rules still apply. So those reductions from 4% to 2%, they all still apply, but you have full access. So you've unlocked your super. So if you wanted to take out ad hoc lump sums, or if you wanted to take out income more than 10% of your balance per financial year, you've got that access, because an allocated pension means you have unlocked your super. So you could take all of it out if you so wished. Same rules apply. If you have an allocated pension and you are 58 or 59, there is still some tax payable. But if you're over age 60 and you've got an allocated pension, all of it is tax-free, and you can take out ad hoc lump sums when the unexpected happens, or when a big event, family, weddings, travel, any of those things occur. Within the pension stage, Australian Catholic has 2 products. So the first one is RetireChoice, and it is all about the investment choice. So from the investment menu that you have with Australian Catholic, you can mix and match and you can choose different investments. So anything from 100% cash to 100% shares, and mixed options in between, where instead of you picking and choosing how much you want in cash or how much you want in Australian shares or property, the choice of how much in each of those categories is decided that you choose overall the type of risk you have. So RetireChoice is all about that investment choice. Choose where you're invested, and you can choose which investment you use to pull down your regular payments. There's quite a few to choose from. You can mix and match between these two columns. So the diversified options are the mixed options that are pre-mixed. So shares is a mix of Australian and international. Growth is a mix that has more shares and property, and then it moves down. So you go from growth to balanced, conservative balance, conservative, capital stable. Socially responsible is similar to risk around the balanced option, so it's mid to high range, but it's looking at socially responsible investing, which means it's focusing on companies that take a stronger stance. You can mix and match those with your single asset options as well. So this is if you have particular fondness for a category that you want slightly more investment in, you can choose that as well. RetireSmart is a pre-designed product. So it takes away that choice of where you're putting your money to be invested, but also where you're drawing the money out. So it looks at trying to generate income over the long term and making it last as long as possible. So this is how this one works. You take your money and it's invested between growth and cash. And as the years go on, the cash distributions move to cash so that you keep taking your regular payment along the way. But the growth assets stay in the background, churning away, and they move with the markets. And sometimes you'll have more money being paid out than others when the years are really good, and they flow back into there as well. Oops, sorry, I thought there was another slide in between that. With that particular mix, you don't choose whether you're taking down from the growth assets or from the cash. It's automatically set up so that all you're doing is saying, I want the RetireSmart product. The growth assets are a little bit higher. So for some of our more cautious or conservative investors, have a look at RetireSmart because it may not fit what you're looking for. Okay, so it takes away your choice. So when you do decide you want to use it, make sure you've had a look at it so you know that it suits you and what you're expecting. Longevity is the big question we get. And people say, well, do I have enough? And it's, well, do you have enough? How much are you spending? How long does it need to last? Because the real question that people are asking, when can I retire? It's not when you can retire, it's how much do you need to retire when you want? Because some people find out that if they do end up looking like they have enough, they might say, well, you know what, I can choose to retire when I want. So I'm enjoying working, I might do it for a little bit longer. Or they might turn around and say, well, you know what, now that I can retire, I am out of here. So the big questions about longevity, when we're doing financial planning, there's some concrete benefits, you know, can we help you save more for retirement? But there's also some other benefits that come from having a bit of a roadmap and a path forward and looking at, okay, well, what happens if we've got some big events? We've just been through COVID, we had GFC previously, but also will it last? Because we're all living a lot longer. So we've got a bit of an example for everybody. So this is looking at the comfortable lifestyle, looking at a couple, they're 65, but their retirement age, pension age is a little bit higher than 65, but they don't want to wait until their age pension age. They want to stop earlier, and they've got a little bit of money, 300,000. So in total, they have 600,000 available to them. They own their own home. They don't have any debt. So Longevity wise, how long will their money last? In conjunction with the age pension, it can last them through to their 90s. And that's because they're using a combination of not only their own savings, but the age pension as well. So that can provide a base for people. Now, if people want more, or if they want to retire earlier, then they're going to need more money saved to start with. And this is where their income comes from. So this couple retired a little bit early. So in the first year, the purple is all of their superannuation. It's all what they're using. And then the age pension starts to kick in. They've still got a bit of assets behind them, so they're not getting the full age pension from the start, but they eventually do, and it pushes out their own savings, so their own savings can last longer as well. Age pension eligibility. Are you age pension age? So it's steadily been increasing to age 67. So a lot of people say, right, I'll retire when I'm 67. You can still access your super from age 65. That hasn't changed. Are you an Australian resident? And what assets and income do you have? So Centrelink will look at you both. They'll look at both your assets, both your income together, and they'll say, well, whichever one gives you the smaller amount, that's the age pension that you're going to get. So how much are you going to get? This is your ages. So for anyone who is before 31st December 1956, then you don't have to wait until 67. Anyone after 1 January, we've got to wait just a little bit longer. These are the testing rates. So these were updated in March. So if you are single and you own your own home, then the purple range that we're looking at, this is the full age pension. Blue, you're eligible for a part age pension, and the closer you get to the orange line, the smaller that gets until it cuts out completely. The main thing here to take note of is that if you don't own your own home, you're allowed to have more assets behind you because you're going to need it. Because if you don't own your own home, you're going to be renting, and when you're renting, you can potentially be moving depending on the rental market. So this has an impact, and you do need a little bit more of a nest egg behind you. Same rates for couples. As a homeowner, you have less before the age pension cuts out. As a non-homeowner, you have more because you'll need more to support yourself with that. But as you can see, as a couple, to receive part of the age pension, there's still a rather large allowance there. So that allows people to, even if they're only receiving a very small age pension, to start accessing the benefits that come with holding the age pension card as well. The income test. So we see a lot of singles and a lot of couples where people are transitioning into work. So they might start cutting back their hours, especially among the teachers, where they're looking at potentially job sharing or potentially moving to relief work. And a couple, sometimes we see one person stopping work before the other. So what that means is you don't have to be fully retired and earning no income before you receive the age pension. You're still allowed to be working and earning. It just means that you'll have a part age pension, and those are the limits there. The most that you will receive as a single person, 25,600. This is equal to the very cautious lifestyle that Ray was talking about earlier. Okay, and even as a couple, 38,700. So if you're single, you need more because you're still going to be paying your rates. You're still going to be paying your rent, your living costs, your utilities. As a couple, you're still paying those, but it's split between the two of you. Okay, so there is a little bit extra there for couples, but again, it's not double because some of those utilities, rents, all of those, they're shared. Okay, but if you go back to those lifestyles that Ray was talking about, 38, almost 39,000 for a couple, almost 19.5 for a single person, that's a lot less than that comfortable or even that modest lifestyle. So it really is at the lower end, and most people are trying to put themselves a little bit ahead of that because it just makes it a little bit more flexible to deal with things that may occur later in life. If you can't get the age pension though, you may be eligible for the Commonwealth Seniors Healthcare Card, which does provide some benefits. It is not asset tested, okay? It is income tested. So it depends on how much money you are earning. So even if people don't get the age pension card because they've got a bit too much of their own savings, if they're not working or working very little, they may still be able to access some benefits. And the state government also has a couple of benefits as well. Now, we're fully aware that the state government varies a lot state to state, and it's not always a lot of difference, but it is worth checking out that you're able to access a seniors card from your state government earlier than what you normally would the age pension card and the Commonwealth Seniors Healthcare Card. So have a look, see what benefits are available and when they kick in for yourself, so that you can try and use them as early as possible. And as Ray mentioned earlier, we've got some changes coming up in July. They were proposed, a lot of them, in last year's May budget, and they've just become legislated recently, so they're all starting to kick in from July. Ray, did you want to have a look at the upcoming changes?
I'll take over, thank you. Thank you, Jolene. Yes, the government, because of COVID, have decided that the 50% reduction on the minimum drawdown that had existed for the last 2 years because of COVID would be extended for another year. So using Jolene's earlier example, a person under 65 under the age-based structure has to take 4%, but with the 50% reduction, obviously that's reduced to 2%. So that's the minimum. So you don't have to take that reduction, but it's an opportunity for people to withdraw or draw down less if in fact they don't need it for whatever reason. The government have also said that where historically you had to earn in excess of $450 in a calendar month to warrant a superannuation guarantee contribution being made for you, the government have decided that all that does is disadvantage very low income earners. So what they've said is they've eliminated the $450 threshold. So after the 1st of July this year, if you earn any money from gainful employment, the employer will be required to make a contribution. And again, as of the 1st of July this year, that is going to increase the percentage. So it was 10% of your gross ordinary time earnings. And as of the 1st of July 2022, that's increasing to 10.5%. So everyone will be getting a little bit more into their super as a consequence of that increase. Up till now, and it still currently exists until the 1st of July, but in order to be able to make contributions of a non-concessional type to your superannuation, if you are aged between 67 and 74, I mentioned earlier that you had to meet the work test. The work test is being abolished as of the 1st of July 2022. So if a person between 67 and 74 wants to make a non-concessional contribution to their super, they will be able to do so. The limits will be $100,000 a year or $330,000 if you contribute 3 years worth of contributions in one. The bring forward rule is being included up until the age of 75. And as we mentioned earlier, after 75, there are no contributions permissible. We mentioned earlier that if you're over 65 and sold the family home that you'd owned for more than 10 years, that you could put up to $300,000 into superannuation. That minimum age has been reduced down to 60. So those people between 60 and 65 who want to make a contribution to their super have the capacity to do so. And the first home buyers can now save up to $50,000 and any deemed earnings to use as a home deposit through the first home buyer saver scheme. Some of the other areas where our financial planners can be useful is information with regard to creating a will, things like power of attorney and enduring power of attorney. And even whilst you're in superannuation or the pension phase, a very important issue in relation to estate planning is to nominate a beneficiary within your superannuation fund. There's a couple of different options available. There's a binding nomination, and as the name implies, that binds the trustees to pay it the way you've indicated. There is a non-binding nomination as well, which is a guide to the trustees. Previously, it used to be referred to as a preferred beneficiary, because that's who you would prefer the money to go to. And if that person is an eligible recipient, then I'm reasonably confident that in a great many cases, the trustees would pay it to that person. But one of the other advantages of having a binding nomination is that because the trustees are bound to pay it the way you've said, they don't have to do any research to determine if there is anyone else out there who may be eligible to receive your proceeds. And so my experience is that people with binding nominations, they're paid out a little bit quicker than those with non-binding, because with the non-binding, the trustees have to be sure that there isn't anyone else that's able to receive any of your proceeds in the event of your death. Our financial planners are also trained and well versed in the needs of aged care, whether that's for yourself or whether you're planning for others. A lot of people, baby boomers, are all reaching retirement now, but a great many of them have got parents who are entering aged care facilities, and it is a minefield of decisions and choices. So that's where our financial planning team can be of immense use. On that very subject, some of the things that our financial planners can assist you with is saving your money to your retirement, helping you to maximise your Centrelink entitlements, to give you some indication of how long your money will last when you're in retirement, looking at your goals, short, medium and long term, and establishing whether or not your current superannuation accumulation is adequate for those goals that you've got in mind. I mentioned estate planning, advice on other non-superannuation investments and strategies, and also advising on your partner or family member, because couples come to the financial planners together because what you do will often affect your spouse and vice versa. There are other ways that we can help as well, though. Our goal is to make superannuation journey as simple as possible, and so regional managers such as myself and the call centre team can assist you with general superannuation and pension questions. They can provide you with forms, or they can assist you to complete forms where necessary. They can provide you with account information. It has to be basic or factual, but not basic, that's not the right word, general or factual information. And if you want to speak to a regional manager and you don't already have their contact details, you can just call us on the fund on 1300 658 776. And if the call centre team can't help you with your inquiries, or if there's a need to be referred to a regional manager or a financial planner, they can provide you with those appropriate referrals. There are some people within our fund, though, that would like some limited advice on specific topics, but don't necessarily need to see a comprehensive financial planner for that information. And a couple of examples of that are how much you can actually contribute, so that they take into account how much your employer SG is encroaching into the $27,500 concessional cap that exists this year. They can assist you to make an informed decision on which investment option or options is most appropriate for you. They can provide you with advice on whether or not you have adequate insurance, or whether or not there might be a need to request more, depending on your circumstances. And they also can give you some information on the merits of considering a transition to retirement. And you can reach those people via the same 1300 number that I mentioned earlier. But there are also many people that have a more complicated situation. They've got many things to consider, husband and wife, different assets, etc. So they would most likely need to be referred to a comprehensive financial planner for personalised advice, and they can also assist with contribution limits. You skipped ahead a bit too quick then, Jolene.
Yeah, sorry, everyone.
It's all right. Save you money on your retirement, maximise your Centrelink entitlements, and a lot of those things that I mentioned earlier. Thanks, Jolene. All of that information can be obtained via the call centre, but if you only during work hours, and if you wanted to look at things like your account balance or whatever, I would thoroughly recommend that you get a PIN number so that you can access your own details via the member portal. All you need to do in the first instance is contact the 1300 number at the call centre and get a temporary PIN number so that you can access your account. At that time, you would then be encouraged to change your password to something that you could remember easily. But periodically, and about 12 months ago, we changed the portal and people had to contact us again to regain access. But more and more people are actually looking up their own information for themselves, and they can do it at a time that suits them. The member portal is a great way to keep on top of your super. It provides you with the ability to make contributions. You can find out your account balance. You can change your investment options through the member portal. You can work out how much insurance you have. You can nominate a non-binding beneficiary. You can't do a binding beneficiary via the website because it's a legally binding document, so it has to be signed and witnessed, and you can't do that online. And there's many other things, and they probably change from time to time, so it's probably worthwhile jumping into your member portal at least once a year just to see if there's any new features or functions that might provide you with the information you're after. So what to do right now? Certainly, if you haven't already got access, get a PIN number so that you can access your member portal. Speak to a regional manager and they can provide you with information and also referrals to the limited advice and or comprehensive advice if that's needed, or ultimately talk to a member of our financial advice team. Our contact numbers are 1300 658 776. Our website is catholicsuper.com.au, and we have an email contact fundoffice@catholicsuper.com.au. If there are any questions, I would certainly encourage you to put them through to the chat line, and we will answer those at our first available opportunity. That may not be until tomorrow or coming days, but we'll endeavour to get a response back to you as soon as we possibly can.
We haven't had any questions come through during the seminar, so if there's something that you'd like to ask us before we let you go for the evening, you can open up the question and answer or the chat box as well, and we'll try and get those answers to you straight away.
Perfect.
So we'll leave the questions open for just a while longer to see if anyone pops anything in. But we want to say thank you for taking the time this evening, because we do understand after a full day at work, sometimes it's not the most popular choice. So thank you very much for joining us. If you didn't have any questions, you are free to leave at this time.
Thank you, Jolene, and thank you for your assistance as well, Justin.
I'll close the webinar now.
Yeah, no questions have come through. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Oh, I've just got one coming through now.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so a question that has come through is, can we nominate our own investors? Okay, you can choose from our investment menu. but those are the choices that you can make. So if there is a particular company or a particular fund manager that somebody was wanting to choose, no, but you can choose from those investment menus or where you would like it to be invested.
Thanks, Jolene and Ray. I'll close the webinar off now. Any other questions that come through, the local RM will contact the members in the morning.
All right.
Thank you very much,
all.
Justin.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Jolene.
Bye-bye.